What's the big idea?
All right. And we are back. Another
back.
episode here.
With a sound upgrade.
Sound upgrade.
Hopefully.
Hope you like it, folks. We've spent a lot of energy and money and because we're famous now, right? We have over 340 subscribers.
Yeah.
It's actually pathetic considering how many people are listening. So
how hard we're trying.
Yeah, how hard and how much work we're doing, but nobody really cares. So
Yeah.
I guess the only thing, maybe we should beg people, if you are listening to this and it's early in the show, just hit subscribe just for our self-esteem.
Yeah. If this is like the third time listening, you may as well just click it.
Yeah, or first time. Like there's no limit. Like we don't.
I don't know how to sell it.
Even if you're not listening, hit subscribe. How about that?
It's hard to sell a button click, you know?
It is, and it feels so used car salesman.
Yeah.
You know? And you know what? Forget it. Don't click.
Don't click.
No click. Anyway, this episode we are here to talk. We talked about last episode. We talked about toxic teammates, and that's been doing well. A lot of people have been tuning in or listening to that episode, and we're grateful for that. But it seemed fitting that we addressed another topic today of handling toxic parents, because the reality is, I think we all know this. Of course, coaches know this. So coaches, hopefully, if you're watching this might give you some tidbits on how to handle toxic parents. And then for parents listening, we all know those parents on our teams throughout the years that we would identify as sort of a toxic parent. And players too. Players also have issues sometimes when they're on the courts and they hear parents say things, right? So
yeah.
Do you have any toxic parent memories in your life? I know Eric has no memories, but
Yeah. It wasn't that big of an issue. It was just mainly hearing parents on your team or even on other teams just being really weird, like chirping players, and just feeling super awkward for whoever their kid was, basically.
Yeah. Like chirping their own kid or other kids?
Yeah, other kids, and then even kids on my team after our game, making a very public display, complaining to our coach why their kid isn't getting played, or this, and then it can get weird, I guess, if you hear them complaining about, especially if you're the other player, saying, "Oh, why are they playing more than so and so?"
Oh,
yeah. But I don't remember it being too big of a thing. There was just one parent in particular. They used to kind of regularly have meltdowns, but I think, I shouldn't
like
say
on
regular.
the sidelines, eh?
I shouldn't say regularly. It was probably like 3 times in a season type thing.
And you remember them, eh?
That's
the weird
post-game,
thing, right?
yeah.
These things are like scarring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, because we should probably identify. So like you said a few things there, like, so toxic parents will criticize other kids. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Like they take if it is a coaching bad decision or you just believe it's a bad decision, two different things, right? So if you take it out on other kids, talk to other kids while they're playing. One of my favorite, I hear these stories every now and then, like where like a parent has a camera set up, okay, and they're recording a match, and then imagine getting home and putting on that video.
Oh man,
and hearing yourself? Another parent, another parent sitting near the camera, not knowing. And they're like talking crap.
That must have happened so many times.
I think I've seen it on Facebook and social media where like could you imagine like just your jaw drop?
If you're listening and you've had that happen, hey, first of all, post the clip on YouTube. That'd be hilarious. And then put the link in because that'd be really funny. But that must happen all the time now because everyone's recording, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I could see myself, like, I could see parents going to consult voice analysis just like narrow down like who these people could be, and putting their iPhone in their pocket and leaning forward to get samples of regular conversation. No, but so that's so parents talking crap about other kids.
Especially when this parent, in my memory in particular, they didn't know the sport of volleyball. They definitely didn't know volleyball. They just knew that their kid wasn't playing enough, or something like that. They didn't stand out enough on the court or something. So.
No,
and it's kind of, it sucks because I remember the kid and he was great. Like he was a really fun teammate. Like,
I think it's all, I shouldn't say always, but I think most of the time, like there's two different types of parents, right? There's a parent that is knowledgeable and goes crazy silently because of what they were watching. And they know what it's like to be a coach, and they don't want to be that parent. We talked about this before in Good Coach, Bad Coach, I think, or no, the Ultimate Parenting season, I think. There's that player former player who knows what they're looking at and just quietly goes crazy inside, which is my life sometimes when I'm watching.
You said they know what they would turn into if they were to. They don't want to be that person.
Yes,
that requires that whole.
Yes, awareness.
Yeah,
filter,
projection,
filter, and
if
just
I do this,
empathy.
What is likely going to happen? This will be the reaction. Is what I want to do going to get any result? No. So.
Yes, yeah, that's it right there, right? And also just the futility in it, because it's just going to raise, like you said, defensive mechanisms in a coach who's not reasonable or not making.
What will this achieve? Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the other parent, and I think most of the time that parent that is not knowledgeable is the vocal one. And I think there's a connection between not being a high level athlete and being impulsive, right? Like, I think high level athletes tend to be a little more patient in general, understanding process. Like for me, to bring it to my example as a former high level player, watching my kids suck at young ages. I told you this story before. Other parents are like, "Oh, this must be tough for you to watch," and my reaction is, "It's the process. This is part of it's part of the trip. They're probably better than I was at that age. They're getting to play a lot more, and I kind of want them to lose early on. And I even like the idea sometimes if they are getting benched unfairly, I think there's a real advantage in teaching your kid what to do in that situation, and it's good to see your kids struggle, right? So that's the different place that I come to it from. But there reaches a point, obviously, where every parent is like, okay, if the coach is too unreasonable. But going back to the toxic parent, I think most times the toxic parent, not always, but most, they're less knowledgeable, shouting out the wrong things, angry at the wrong things, like just get it over, that sort of thing.
I think this is just going to turn into a series. It's basically on toxicity. We started with the player, and I'm already seeing the parallels. Now we're talking about the parent, and you said this. It's they're like needing to be heard, right? And as the former player parent, already recognizing the futility in it. Yet we see this behavior in certain other parents, so it makes us ask the question: what is their action serving them? Why are they doing it for? And if it's not from the background of having played the sport, maybe they're trying to say, oh, they should be playing because they're better. No, that's not. It's serving a need for them as an individual. Like what they need to be heard. They need to make a scene. They need the attention. What do you think?
Well, I think so. Like, we're getting into like what's it caused by, and just like the last show when we talked about toxic player, we really like. So for parents listening, so if you know a toxic parent, if you feel like let's face it, there are some, like you mentioned this about toxic players. I don't think toxic players, because they're young, tend to know that they're toxic, but adults, I think definitely will go home, a lot of them, and regret what they've said or what they did, but they can't control it the next time, right? You know what I mean? So I think I hope they regret it sometimes. Some parents don't, like the really dangerous ones or really toxic ones don't. But it is, so we do like to come from a place of understanding, not forgetting, not overlooking, not even like, I think, consequences need to happen for parents who are like, overtly toxic or, bullying.
Regret is a consequence, right?
Regret is, but like for the ones that don't have any regret, we still like to come at it from a place of understanding, because we can't fix any issue, right? Like let's be clear. Like, it doesn't matter if you're talking about this, it doesn't matter if you're talking about anything, unless you know the root cause, you will not fix anything. Like, our society's kind of trained to use Band-Aids on symptoms, and we are really trained across the board to not look at root causes. Like any aspect of our society, like, if we don't fix root cause, we tend to deal with symptoms, unless you're in the construction engineering profession, in which case you're looking at, found what's behind the wall, not just the surface, right? So that's something I think that's very important for anybody listening. So if you're a coach listening to this and you do have a problem with a parent on your team, or parents, and you had them every year, understand that you will not help the situation by confronting aggressively, you will only help this if you understand the root cause. And in my opinion, like you sort of asked me, my theory, and I think it's pretty much not a theory, but the idea is that people who are like this are generally deeply filled with, like you said before in the episode, toxic sort of pain.
Yeah.
Right. They're hurting. They're not happy. Their lives aren't, if they're a jerk in one aspect, they're a jerk to everybody. And that's usually because of low self-esteem. Something didn't go well for them in their childhood and their life. And that's what comes out in this sort of behavior.
It could be, hopefully in some cases, it's just them in that moment in time, in that month, that week, that day or something, where it's just a culmination of bad things. And then perhaps
it could be a situational.
Yeah. Because thinking back on it, like I remember, we all kind of, I've been toxic before, right? And so it's not like, I think I said this last episode, there's a turning point. Well, it's not like there's a single turning point where you go from having toxic behavior and then having a realization one day and then it's forever eliminated. You still have to make the choice every day. And which is why this can happen. Like, yes, you're trying to be a better person every day, but all of a sudden you have a really rough week or month or day, and then just a whole bunch of negative things go on, and then it makes it difficult. And then all of a sudden you just become overwhelmed with emotion, and you don't have that control to pause before your emotions make your decisions for you. And then you do something, and this is the individual who certainly would afterwards, when they're back home, or even right after having the conversation, or even in the conversation, regret what they're saying. And and a good way, I think you mentioned this, to actually help facilitate that, if you're the one on the end of this being spoken to, is to just like listen, or give those open questions where, and you said, don't confront it. Just trying to just be like absorbing it. And yeah, you may actually see that if this person talks and hears them talking, and you're just like listening or reflecting back, they'll all of a sudden pause and be like, oh geez, I'm really having a meltdown right here. Right. I'm so sorry. I'm sure that could be a possibility.
Yeah. No, that's a great, there's a couple of different things you mentioned there. There's definitely the person that blows up and it's unexpected.
Yeah.
And those are those people who are having those horrific weeks or some stuff like in life. I mean, we've all had that, I think. And we look back and regret because we are coming at it from a healthy perspective. But the person that's chronically doing this, like repeatedly, that's where the pain is constant, and the stress and self-loathing is there all the time. And that's the way it comes out. So coaches understand that. Hopefully players are young, but hopefully listening to things like this, they'll start to understand that person's in pain, right? Doesn't forgive the behavior, but it definitely helps us understand it, because again, the goal is to help manage this. And you said one thing that's great. If coaches can sort of get in the habit of listening to someone who's talking like this, giving them some time, saying, well, let's have a conversation, and let's maybe have a conversation somewhere else, somewhere more appropriate. And then you take that conversation. I don't think email is a good way to go in these situations. I don't think texting is a good way to go. A phone call, you could get away. A phone call can be good. Phone call can be very good because it takes some of the verbal cues out of the equation. What should ultimately happen is understanding where this person might be coming from, and then the best power that a coach can have, and this is where it ties in with the toxic coach thing too, is if you have great whys. So as a coach, this is where research comes in.
Great what?
Great whys, like WHY plural.
Oh,
like sorry. if you're wise, if your answers for why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. And this helps fix the toxic coaching issue too, by the way. So coaches, just understand this, that all stress can go away through preparation, just like we told players. If players prepare very well, there's less stress, and there's more. They are very prepared, and there's less room for doubt when you're very prepared. Coaches too. Like, I know you're volunteers. Most coaches, definitely, if you're paid. Yeah. If you're paid, then definitely you should be doing this. And I think most coaches, if they're well paid, do. Yeah. But even if you're a volunteer, part of taking it on is doing it just a little bit of research, a little bit of work, Could be mentoring with another coach, could be YouTube videos, could be this show. Self-plug. But
well, and it's just going through the steps in their mind of, answering their question as to why would I do this technique this way for this, whatever, for this pass. And then you just kind of go through,
well, you don't want to the last thing you want is listen, I'll tell you, I was in a Facebook group recently, okay, and it was a coaches group, and the coaches were posting about how we just had our first tournament and already were flooded with emails and phone calls about playing time. And one of the comments, I remember some guy was laughing and saying how I even got I have this kid who has a horrible attitude, misses practice, bad attitude in practice, and I played them the whole day but every set, and they still got a complaint from their parent about the playing time. And a comment came up, so I actually commented and I said, so why were you playing that player? And then he goes, I don't know, LOL. And I'm like, well, what do you think the other 11 sets of parents or whatever, how many players you have, were thinking when you put on the kid with the bad attitude who missed practice? Like, that coach was admitting so much in that they thought they were mocking the parent who was criticizing the fact that their kid only sat one set, when really what they were doing is showing just how horrible they were
to the whole team. And
I literally had to comment, so why were you playing that kid? And he's like, I don't know, LOL. He thought I was kind of like supporting, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so coaches, make sure that your behaviors and your routines and your playing strategy are rooted in logic, right? Because if you sit down and maybe a great exercise is pretend that we shouldn't get too far down this path, because now we're into the area where the coach might not have a good answer. Let's face it, because even great coaches still have a toxic parent on the team. But I still think that great coaches can nullify. When I was coaching last few years, I would get parents coming up to me asking me about different playing time, right? And in the past I have. And my answer is simple. If it's your kid has unfortunately missed a lot of practice time, right? And if they miss practice, I said, I always ask them the questions. I say, so if they miss practice and I play them, what does that tell the rest of the team?
Right.
And then they easily say, oh yeah, you're right, then they wouldn't show up either. And I said, there you go.
Yeah.
So I think your kid can be very good at the sport, but I can't reward poor work ethic, because I'm not here to win championships. I'm here to teach kids about work ethic and about life.
It looks like you have a central value, which is growth. Mm-hmm. Right? Or whatever. And then you can have all these scenarios around it, and then you can always tie this, why was my child benched or whatever. Well, you can just draw that logical line back to the core of growth. And like you said, because that's it's a form of discipline.
I don't bench, but I mean playing as much as the parent wanted. Because you need to show discipline. You need to give discipline to the players, and you're giving for the purpose of growth, and then also for the team, because now showing what this player is going to go through by being late routinely, they're going to be punished or disciplined. Natural consequence,
right? And then the others all see it, and it's also respectful to the other team, so it just sets a precedent. And again, all of this relates back to improvement and growth, right? Mm-hmm. So and to be clear, it seems so simple.
It's very. This is what I was going to say too. It's very difficult. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, I'm just saying it seems so simple, but it's not. It's not. This still is the harder thing to do, to be able to be present in that moment. But again, you are saying this from a point of preparation, and you've thought about the whys for decades already
before the policy is made.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so
you don't want to sit there when someone asks you,
and then be like,
and they go, "Whoa, that's a good question."
Well, at least you are considering it, I suppose. It's better than just retorting with "because I said so."
Oh, that's the worst, and I think that's where a lot of coaches are. But again.
But see, no one wants to say, oh, well, let me think, because now that opens you to, you're now vulnerable to be like, what, you don't know why? Right.
Well, that's why you got to, so as a coach, the best way, it's kind of, they're so linked, like you said, the toxic coach and toxic parent, because the coach's best way to confront or to, let's be honest, sometimes you can't reason with unreasonable people, but if a coach is going to try, I've never had a problem, so as a teacher and as a coach, I've never had a problem with parents or as a coach but that's because the policies and ideas are rooted in logic.
Yeah.
And that's a tricky thing because it's hard for people to just say, oh, I'm going to be logical today, right? Like you can't just wake up one day and be logical.
You're naturally good at it though. And you kind of always have been, right?
Oh, thank you, Eric. You're logical. Awkward. You're logical as well.
Oh yeah. No, but it still, I'm in agreement with what you're saying.
Yeah. I think it's not so. I don't know if I'm born this like that way or not, but I think that sports helped me because sports is the ultimate logic and business.
Yeah.
Like I'm in two fields that are honest, right? You can't lie in sports and you can't lie in business. I can fake it in other areas and I can be, I can put on the show in other areas, but you can't do that. I can't be the best dressed guy at the tournament and be the best player just because of the clothes. I have to have something underneath the clothes. And boy, do I ever.
Wow.
No, but you have to have something, you have to have quality beneath the surface. And then same with business. Like there's no lying or faking. Like the results, I can dress up everything, make it look fancy, but if the customers don't come or if the people don't want what I'm selling, it's a meritocracy, right? So I think that's where the logic comes from, is like if you live in those spaces. So when I was teaching, and this is by the way, like I had to leave teaching eventually because it wasn't a meritocracy anymore. I was just like, as a pro athlete and then as an entrepreneur, I was like, this is not helping kids, and it's not supposed to help kids. By the way, it's not supposed to help them be leaders. And so once it was not rooted in logic, I just couldn't.
I don't want to get political.
I don't want to get political, but. So once it was out of the logic thing, I was kind of not into it. I was ready to move on to something that was pure meritocracy. And whenever something, and even when business started getting a little weird, like out of my control, I wanted to step, maybe something even more of a merit-based thing. But yeah, so that's where I think it comes from. But coaches, by the same token, if they played, or if they have been coaching for a while, they should be developing this too. And I think this is hopefully what you see in an older coach, that they have good answers.
When if they had been playing and then they make a change or they want to try implementing a strategy and you start in practice, right? There's a reason why they're doing that. They've seen a certain scenario and they want to, they want to better prepare their team for it. So the why is already there. I can't think of a scenario where he would make a change.
Or she, Eric.
Did I didn't even say he.
You said he. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You did.
So every time you want me to say he or she?
Yeah. I think that would be nice and inclusive for the audience. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how about next time I say she?
Or like why? I guess the real question, just going back to my logical roots, is like, why did you choose to say he in the first place? These are good questions. I'm not answering them.
I don't know. I don't know the why.
You don't know the why.
I don't know the why.
Sorry. I didn't mean to call out your blatant disregard for half the planet. Sorry. What?
Because I do know why. Because in most books I read.
We're still talking about this?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I'll notice authors will go back and forth. In one example, they'll say he, and typically in the next, they'll say she.
Is this what you've noticed? Yes.
Yeah.
In what?
In books.
Are they talking about maybe different
I've
characters?
read books.
Different characters.
No.
Like maybe one character.
No, not in fiction.
Oh, you're just talking about. So, in what scenario would they do this? Like. Can you provide an example, Eric?
Yeah, like even in.
I think we're off topic.
We're totally off topic.
I'll save you and say we're off topic. Sorry, I interrupted your thought. You were saying something. I wasn't listening.
Oh, I was saying, why would the coach just make a change for without a precursor reason?
They have their thought, but what if it's not a good thought? I mean, are we going?
No, we're not off topic. Okay, well, I'll bring you back on topic. Well, maybe they saw something on a YouTube video. And sorry, I was reaching in front of your camera.
Oh, it's okay.
Maybe they saw something
because I'm not on camera
in a YouTube video, and they're like, "Oh, that looks cool."
Yeah.
So there's a scenario where there's no why. It's like, oh, this coach, it looks like what they're doing is cool.
It must have resonated with them for some reason.
They're looking because they want to improve as a coach. They want to get better in the scenario. So they go on YouTube. They're looking for some stuff. They see something that looks cool. Mm-hmm. But if you fail in that moment to do the small amount of work to understand what is going on and even approach this video with a degree of skepticism, like you should with anything, if you're just totally credulous and just believe it, and then I guess you get excited about it, and then all of a sudden you want to implement it at your next practice, and you go and you do, and then you're caught blindsided when you do this, and then maybe the player even asks, oh, coach, why are we doing this? And then you're like,
I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah. Like, boom.
Yeah. No, and it's true. There's so many. I mean, this is what it's so difficult because you don't, like you said, the coach doesn't know the nuance of the team they're watching or like what the passing is like, or maybe they're doing that because of something the other team is doing. And like, you know what I mean? Like and that other team isn't doing it or they're not even doing it at your level. I agree. Yeah. There's too many variables, but I think at the end of the day, coaches, one of the things you can do is to, just like we told the players against toxic teammates in our previous episode, coaches can arm themselves with preparation. So really think through what you're doing. It doesn't take long, all right? And you can also consult other coaches who are high level, maybe have done more than you. Again, they might not know how to filter out the people they're asking, right? Yeah. Like we talked about this in our early episodes. There's a lot of fake coaches, a lot of fraud legends in every sport, and volleyball has that too. There's a lot of high level coaches who really haven't done anything and don't know what they're doing, but they just have been there for 30 years. So, but I still think that one of your best resources are former high level players who have become good coaches. Yeah. Like, again, not all great high level players become great coaches, but there are a lot who have played a lot and have become very prominent coaches. And if you ask all of them across the board, I know a lot of them, they will all have the same philosophy that we have, that, you know, the things that we do that seem like they're losing strategies or too soft are actually why we're so great. It's the giving players rest. It's letting us lose in the short term to win in the long term. All of these things, and so again, just going back to business and volleyball, it's the same process. You have to, like, you know, so for instance, like I'm going to go and do some sessions with teams this week, and we're going to talk about form and we're going to talk about technique, and we're okay with losing in the short term. Yeah. We're okay with messing up at the beginning with the goal of, in the long term, we're going to fix some things. Yeah. Right? Some serious. Yeah. Yeah. Just like players who are trying to learn a new skill. A lot of players, they hesitate if they're doing they're having success with bad strategy. They hesitate to change and learn new strategy. Same with coaches. You might be winning at a certain level, so you just want to stay there. Yeah. Whereas you got to think more in the future. And if you're thinking long term, then it's so easy to answer the parent about, you know, where we're going, what the bigger picture is, why these decisions are being made right now pertaining to that kid. But in defense of the coach, and every coach listening knows, we can say that till we're blue in the face. But if you're dealing with an unreasonable person, it's very difficult to use reason. So maybe we should spend some time talking about, like, you know, what do we do with the unreasonable parent? So, like, even the most rational coach. Again, I haven't had this issue, though. I have had parents that would seemingly be, I don't want to say crazy, but, you know, crazy with me or with other coaches. But with me, they're not.
Right. And again, you drew this parallel. Well, I guess I'll draw the parallel from last episode. Seeing someone who's confident or is getting it done. The toxic player doesn't go to the toxic player doesn't go to the confident, dominant player because they're executing, they're performing the task, right? And so they don't look weak. I think that is part of what's going on there. Why you don't encounter these situations often. Now, I'm wondering if in the example of the whole YouTube video thing and stuff like that, like, as much as coaches can do that, there may also be a source of toxic parents as well, because maybe, you know, they're at the tournament, they're frustrated and they want a quick fix or a quick answer. You know, they go online and they're looking and they see videos and they're like, oh, this is, and then now they're also, if they're not doing those steps that we were saying the coach should do, approach these with skepticism, try to understand what's going on here. And now, is this really applicable to, and even if what you see is good advice, well, that's good, because now you're establishing your answer as to why, if you choose to bring this up to the coach on like, hey, why aren't you doing this system, or why are you doing this system?
I would.
No, I would still, but at least you as the parent,
if you do a lot of research, that's what you're saying, right? There's a parent who will do a superficial skimming of something, and a little bit of knowledge is a very dangerous thing. We know this, right? People with a little bit of knowledge are the most dangerous people in the world, because they think they know more than they do. Whereas the parent, if they're willing to dig and really research, then they might be able to come at something with some logic, and then the coach might respect their opinion a little more too, right? Yeah. Like if you walk up and go, how come you just use inappropriate terminology and everything, the red and white stick, instead of the antenna or something. Yeah. But I think that, research is important for parents as well. Like we had, even when we did this show, our first couple episodes, a lot of people were like, oh, it's way too long. And we're like, well, we want, the idea is to discuss things with a little more depth, because these are complicated issues, and we're not going to solve it in a 10-minute
And we're not that good at doing this. We're a little bit better at it, maybe.
Yeah. No. But the goal, what they meant was just this, like some comments. Nobody has 2 hours. Like that was sort of the. But again, that's a person. That's a person who wants to 10-minute soundbite for an issue that's far more complex. Yeah. That's why we called it Volleyballology, because we like to get into the stuff that people don't talk about. Like we can all just call a parent a jerk. We can all just call that parent an a-hole.
And we can say why, and we can make lists and all this stuff.
Well, most people will just label them as an a-hole, and then they get in an argument, and it escalates and it blows up. Whereas, if you listen to shows like this, and we're not saying we're the only people like this, but I think we are when it comes to volleyball, you can start to see the person screaming in front of you as a bit of a victim, as a bit of a great strategy in psychology and counseling. When I remember this, I would tell this to people all the time when I was counseling, is picture the person who's throwing a tantrum in front of you as a young child. Yeah, because that's really what's coming out here. Is you're seeing this inner child come out. Because this goes back. This has nothing to do with you sometimes as a coach if you're doing the right things. And it has everything to do with who they are and the issues they have, and they're lashing out, right? So if you picture them as a child, that's a great strategy to see them as vulnerable, right? Like if you see a young child at the mall, people might say spoiled brat, or if you see a young child crying and screaming, you might think, oh, poor little kid. It's just a grown-up child here in front of you screaming and crying because their child failing, and this is another root cause, they're living through their child here, right? Their child cannot fail because this parent was raised in the 1980s and mass media, and they are very they're superficial and they're insecure, right? My age and younger, my age and a bit older, we were sitting in front of the TV a lot, right? And mass media came out during our lifetime. Now we have kids, and we are hyper insecure because of the media told us how to look, how to dress, everything. Yeah. So our kid, and I saw this in schools too, our kids can't fail. Our kids cannot be victimized, because if they fail, that means I'm a failure. We're a failure. And that's the crux of it. And that's why we need to stop it. It's not about our kid. It may not even be about the coach. I mean, sometimes it is, but it might not be about the coach. It's an insecure parent who cannot have their kid fail, because that's a reflection on them. You know what I mean?
That's heavy.
Yeah, I think the show's over.
Yeah.
I think I win. These are competitions right now, keeping score. Yeah. Okay, because it's like 22-0. I'm just kidding. No, you've won some.
No, that's heavy. Like that's real.
It's right in the. I think that's right. That's the dagger. Yeah. And parents, I mean, if you are that parent listening, you got to ask yourself, you got to tell yourself, I'm not my kid. And if you want your kid to be strong and successful one day, it's actually ironic, right? If you want your kid to be strong and successful, then you actually need them to fail often, and struggle.
And as soon as you accept that first failure, like accept that what you're doing is just for your ego to feel safe, you're already then winning as soon as you can begin to accept that idea.
Yeah. Once you see the value in it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it comes at the cost of feeling very weak.
In the short term, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the same process, right? That we were talking about. Like, it's like the team that needs to lose while they're learning the proper system. I was just talking about this earlier tonight because I remember I was coaching once, and a very young group of 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and the ball kept dropping in the middle because we were working on a solid 6-back system, and they weren't great blockers, and the players on the tee didn't know how to get in and cover the tips and roll shots in the middle, and we were losing. I remember a ref said, "Oh, you better fix that system," because I was like, "You mean fix the right system so they can beat these?"
The ref said that?
Yeah, ref knew me, and he was like, "Oh, you guys got beat in that middle." I said, "Yeah, but we're working on a system, right?" And then by next tournament, they were dominating other teams because beating teams they were losing to 2 weeks before, because they had you have to go through the loss to win, and like the same with the parents. You got to deal with that feeling, understand where it's coming from. That it's really, this isn't you in grade 6 not getting picked. This isn't you in grade 8 not playing sports. Because I think one of the big problems too in this whole scenario is that most parents today, like volleyball has become like this massive sport, right? It's like the fastest growing sport. And so that means that if it's that fast growing, that means that the parents weren't playing. The parent, like I look around the gyms, right. I'm like, I'll see 1 or 2 other parents that I played against and with, and we know each other. But 90% of parents never played. So they didn't get this, they were the kid that wasn't the athlete, or they weren't on the team, and they weren't on the volleyball team, or they were crap in volleyball class. And now their kid is pretty good at it, but now they go to this other team where they're not so good at it compared, maybe a better group of players or whatever. So you're not equipped to deal with failure. You didn't get the practice growing up. We all had humility, right? We got those. We told stories in earlier episodes where we were the worst player on the team as rookies, and or we were, have a bad streak on the court, or mess up, or have shank ball. Like, think of all the practice. Whenever I see a player get stuff blocked really hard and they're so distraught, I'm like, do you know what that means? That you cranked the ball so hard? Like, as a hitter, the harder you get stuff blocked, that means you cranked it. Like I always see the positive in that. I'm like, I applaud the blockers, but I also tell the player, you know how hard it is to get stuff. Like, you got to be a good hitter to have the ball come straight down after it. And so that's a weird thing. Or like, I'll see coaches that I know who played, and they'll applaud for a player who smokes it out the back because they did something small in their spike approach. And I remember the coach told me, like, this guy, a former high level player, and he's like, I applauded a kid because they did something I wanted them to do in their spike approach. They waited for the ball. Yes, they hit it out of bounds, but there was something else we were working on in their swing. So I applauded, and a parent came up to him afterwards, like, why were you clapping? She hit it out of bounds. And he's like, no, because I'm worried about where she's headed next. She took care of some major problems in her approach, her timing, right? But the process wasn't there because the parent was not an athlete, right? It's a big problem, and it's very difficult to fix, and that's why we sort of want to do this show, is because I think there's not enough people like us communicating to these parents who have never played sports, right? And they don't understand that, like I said, like, I look back on the worst periods of my volleyball career, like, or the most challenging, or the time where you felt like you didn't belong, and I see them now as the most valuable. Like, they are the reason why you get better. They're the moments that make it so much better when you do succeed. I'm just coming off a horrible injury right now. Like, I had my first 2, I told you, I had my first 2 real workouts. I had a torn Achilles tendon. Yes, I know, like, people listening, like, you probably couldn't tell, but I was doing the show with a torn Achilles tendon. You probably don't notice because I'm really tough. But after every show, I was bleeding from the ankle. That doesn't even make sense. I didn't have surgery, but like, so what I just had 2 of my first real leg workouts and body, workouts since the injury. Like, I've been doing mild stuff, not really, but I've been eating chips, and
guys never work on mild, especially when you haven't worked out in like 3 months.
No, but I've been off for months, and the workout was sweet. And like, it's weird how the injury, I even said this when it happened, I was looking forward to rehabbing. the injury. Like, it was weird. Like, within minutes or hours of the injury, couldn't wait to pull off the comeback because I'm old now, right, and fat. So I want to make that comeback, right? And that's something that comes with sport. That's the adversity. Adversity is fun, or you can get weirdly weird. Yeah, we talked about this too.
Yeah.
A lot of pro athletes who retire, they go in and out of the shape, right? Like athletes in their off seasons will get out of shape too sometimes because I think, is there something in us that wants the challenge of getting back, maybe, right?
Yeah. There's two things I'm thinking of here. There's also, so there's the online world, right? And then there's also the gym that you're in these tournaments in. Like, everyone's on display. Your kid's on display. You're on display. There's this huge social pressure. This is probably, and then you run this in parallel with the social media world, right? So it's like these immediate answers at your fingertips. And then there's being perceived online, and then there's being perceived right there in the moment in reality. And so that's probably making us more sensitive to judgment from others, or we're worried about how we're being perceived. It's also shortening that decision-making process. Well, where we're more likely to be reacting instead of actually acting consciously and pausing, breathing for a moment, considering the things we're thinking of doing, and then maybe, okay, I should reconsider that. So, yeah, because when you're in a gym, especially at these bigger tournaments, you're all there. Like, everyone is a witness to each other.
Good point.
So you're probably very vulnerable, unless if you are someone who is, I guess, more easily influenced by. So I mean, social media. I'm just using that as like a barometer.
I think the phone is
They seem similar.
No, the phone. I think you're right. Like the phone itself, the instant gratification world.
Yeah.
The fact that we can get anything we want, look up anything, order anything we want instantly, and social media. You're right. Like, I talked about this in the confidence episode where, we're exercising a part of our brain on social media that really is comparing ourselves to other people. Like, that's literally what it is. Like, you're scrolling through.
Yeah.
All right. People are more disposable. Okay. I'm going to talk about that. It's a little separate thing, but, and the phone itself is decreasing our ability to see the long process, ability to take time before reacting. Like you said, you're right. It's speeding up the reactions.
Yeah.
And we're like knee jerk, right? And even on Facebook, I mean, that's what Facebook thrives on, right?
I think is what
the
it
comment
thrives on.
section is literally trolls saying stuff, and people who are just sitting on their phones, way too easy to answer, right? So we're actually practicing the art of responding without reason, without thinking. We're literally knee jerk, right? That's what clickbait means. It wants knee-jerk reaction. And the more we're on social media, the more we're practicing that, the more we're on our phones and texting people right away, the less we're able to practice the art of contemplation and thinking before acting. And that's why you see these parents doing knee-jerk stuff. So there's that whole patience thing.
We're drawing, so many connections to, again, themes that have come up already. Like, we're a culture that lifts up strength and winning, and what do we all look at when we're on Facebook and stuff? It's always like, I have Facebook is always showing me reels of volleyball plays, right? And it's always like an amazing spike, amazing dig. It's always
your phone has a lot of nudity on it, I noticed.
I don't know what you're talking about. And
usually naked animals. Actually, fully clothed. Fully clothed animals would be more disturbed.
Yeah.
Sorry, go back to
no. It's just, it's always the successful thing. It's always and then I don't know, parents, if you're listening, if you're in volleyball groups, what are other parents posting? They're probably posting of their kid winning, or their kid getting a great block, or this, or it's never like, oh, here's a video of my kid shanking this spin serve, and like,
hey, that's a good idea. That's a challenge. If any parents are listening, we want you to, right, like today, post a video of your child failing at something in a volleyball group.
Or if you're going to post this success, post a bunch of failures beforehand. Like make a cool little montage, right? Of like of the progression, or just ask yourself, what are the things that you're looking at, and try to pay attention to how you're reacting emotionally, like what you're thinking about.
This is a good challenge for all our.
This is a good challenge for anyone.
All of our non-existent listeners.
Yeah.
Actually, we're doing the same thing with these shows, right? That's why we're making all these early shows so bad, to show the process. We're showing, like, you're listening and it's awful.
Yeah.
You know it's awful. We know it's awful. But just you wait.
Yeah.
That'll be the name of the episode. That'll be our motto at Volleyballogy. Just you wait. Wait till we get good. Just wait till we get good at this. Look at it.
Hey,
anyway.
Those guys are growth mindset oriented. They'll get there.
Growth mindset.
Sorry.
Ooh, I'm so tired of being a teacher hearing growth mindset. That and grit. Sorry.
Okay, so remember that online life versus real life in the gym, especially when you're there at the tournament. And then the other thing I was thinking of is playing beach volleyball, because there's no coach there. And your kid, in the leagues, like I grew up playing, there's coaching now. Or you can.
No, yeah, it's rare. But, yeah.
But this environment is different. You go out to a tournament, especially if you didn't play volleyball, and especially you didn't play beach volleyball. You go to this tournament, your kid is there with their friend that they play maybe indoor with, and they're going to play club with, and then they're out there playing the sport, and maybe it's their first season. It doesn't matter what season it is. They're going to face adversity. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to not know how to react in certain scenarios, because there's a lot of crazy scramble plays in beach. And it's it's a sport where, if you're truly passionate about playing the sport, enjoying it, enjoying the difficulty of it, enjoying the competition, enjoying the creative element of different ways you can succeed, and just trying not to go into it with all of this preconceived structures and systems. Yeah, you can have, there is very clear volleyball systems and stuff, but I guess you need to be open and have an element of play and fun and competition where you're going to make these cool plays and stuff like that. But also at the same time, you're going to get into these very difficult ruts where you end up shanking a whole bunch of balls, or you end up hitting into the net or whatever. Like there's so many things going on. But the reason why I bring up beach is because I guess it'll still happen. There's still a lot of parents there at beach tournaments, but there's no coach. So it's like you can't really go to this coach. You can, I'm sure there's a lot of
you can
parents,
just scream at your kid.
Yeah, well, that's
cut
what I
out
was
the
going to
middle
get
man.
to. They're just
or middle
go,
woman.
Well, and so that happens, right? Middle woman. Yeah, thank you.
Gender.
Yes,
equality.
good job.
Look it up. So full disclosure, Eric is a heavy investor into beach volleyball stocks. So that's why he was going on about beach volleyball for 20 minutes, because he's I don't want to get political.
I didn't do a good job of explaining why I was thinking about beach. But
No. But I think what you're getting at there is that, so as a beach parent myself, as a beach volleyball parent and former player, a lot of beach volleyball has literal rules, like formal volleyball. Beach volleyball has rules about parents getting involved. So the beauty of it is it's just about the kids. And the parent can't interfere. The parent can't talk. Even if you see the kids messing up the scoreboard or something, like in a lot of organizations, they don't allow.
Really?
Yeah, they don't allow parents to speak up. They don't allow parents to coach or yell out instructions. So it's a great place for parents to go and practice restraint. And if you are playing in a place where they even allow parents to shout out, try to sit very far away. That's what we do when we go to beach tournaments. We sit very far away. And I remember when my kids were younger, they would look and they go, "Dad, why are you looking at us? You look so grumpy." I'm like, "I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking 3 courts away. We're in the shades, right?" So they think that I'm grumpy at them, and I'm like, "I'm not even watching you guys. I'm really not." And they just
can't sit here with a smile.
Well, it's just my resting
yeah
B word face. See that? Not swearing.
Nice.
No, but beach is great that way. It's not only is beach great for kids, but beach is great for parents because you get to practice that restraint. And like you said, there's no coach, which is great. But then you should also
it's still the lesser known sport, right? Which is
it's getting there. It's getting there now. Yeah, but it's so good for parents to like honestly, if you can start to treat beach volleyball or even indoor volleyball honestly, if parents thought of it as a place to practice that restraint you're talking about, wouldn't that be neat? Like if parents, okay, look, I'm getting angry here. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting defensive for my kid. Is it about me? Is it good? Do I want my kid to have some suffering before they leave the house? Do I want my kid to struggle before they go off into the world by themselves? The answer every time is yes. Do I want my kid to understand that life isn't fair and that, there are jerks out there? So even if your coach is the worst jerk in the world, is it good for my kid to have this experience, this awareness? I think it is. I think it can only, there comes a point, of course, where you have to speak up or your kid has to speak up. But I think that for the most part, most parents should really work on restraint and teach your child that. Don't forget, right? Like we all know the right answers, right? I always tell people, what would Atticus Finch do? For anybody who read To Kill a Mockingbird, I don't know if anybody reads that book anymore, but what would Atticus Finch do? Atticus Finch would teach restraint. He would be restrained. He was a great character in literary. If you don't know To Kill a Mockingbird, the book, Atticus Finch is a great character because he literally exemplifies restraint. He gets someone spits in his face, right, in the book, and he just wipes it off and steps around them, and teaches his kids the same thing. So parents, try to use volleyball for what it's intended to be. Sports are not about making pro players. Sports are not about getting your kid to play a lot. Sports are about teaching you about life, and sports are to make great people, right? Because like we had Shane on a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the recruiting show, episode 2020. And, we talked about this. How many of these players are going to be pro players? How many of these players are even going to be varsity players at post-secondary? Not many, right? So the bulk of the players, 99% of them are not doing those things. So what do we want them to get from sport? The ethics. We want them to get the values. We
want them to get the honesty of what sport is the competition, teamwork, development,
the unfairness,
the
failure, the success, and don't forget the worst things the fun. Well, and part of the fun, like what makes the great moments great is the crappiest of the crap.
It's funny, like defining the fun of a sport it's not that easy because it's how much of the sport actually is fun. Like there's the exercise element. That's just the whole chemical thing going on, the endorphins and all that. And like you just feel healthier. So there's
dopamine
and all that good stuff. Like that's going on. And that, especially if you're doing this regularly throughout your week, your whole body is on this good chemical, physiological level. Right. So that's probably
maybe that's what's missing from the parent's life.
Well,
right? If you're a sedentary parent, you're not getting the dopamine rush. You're just sitting there watching and judging and getting grumpy. I guarantee you, parents who hit the gym a couple days a week or play a sport of their own, pick up a rec league, right? Not just volleyball, anything you want. I bet you any money they're better parent. They're better at the sporting event. Because they're happier with themselves. Right?
We can definitely make the chemical argument with the impulsive behavior because that's where, they are going to get that, chemical dopamine thing being, I'm proving you wrong type thing or whatever.
That's their sport.
Yeah,
that's where they get their needs met. Right. Life is just about where we get our needs met, and we're always doing things to fulfill some need.
Yeah.
So like if you're doing positive things to meet those needs, that's great. If you're not, you're going to go find negative things to do. It's kind of like junk food, right? Like when we're exercising, just because I sort of went back to exercising hardcore this week after a long stretch of injury. I could have been doing exercise.
Alleged.
Yeah. But I was craving junk food like crazy. Because your body needs it. So you need the crap. But when you're exercising or when you're training
that's
or doing
being
sports,
fulfilled a different way.
Yeah, that crap need is like, I don't need that crutch anymore. So now I'm just craving other different types of foods, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with behavior. So if you're...
Why do you got Twinkies in the drawer then?
No, that's not a Twinkie. Yeah.
Wow.
Is that a Twinkie in your pocket?
Why did I say Twinkie?
It's like 4 Twinkies. Anyway, I don't know. This is a kid show. Eric, it's a kid show.
Yeah.
Anyway, Anyways. No. So parents, if you're not getting your, if you're not getting your healthy rush or your dopamine another way, then you're gonna find it in a bad way.
This is such a diverse. Well, it can be diverse, but there's also just core elements. It can be applied in all areas of our lives.
Universal laws. Right? Yeah. That's what the show I think is sort of like. I hope people understand that when we're talking about. Yes, we're talking about volleyball, but it really applies to everything in life because nothing really is outside of the laws of nature and how the world works, right? Like volleyball is just a little segment of the planet, and it has to follow the same logical principles, right? So that's what we're getting at here. Yeah,
and it's the purpose of playing the sport is it's not to become a pro, but that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It is to
only if
right
you have some of these qualities.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's likely that if the point is to make good people, good individuals, then things like that open up, and it may not be professional sports, but it may be more opportunities job wise or career oriented or growth and networking, and you may end up meeting an amazing group of people, whether it's still in sports or down some other avenue, or you end up finding something you're passionate about. It's just
you want those to carry over to your real life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Am I getting all hippie-ish and just describing energy, like what you put out is kind of what comes back?
No, it's so true. Like, I mean, it's not even a theory when you say that, right? Like literally, it's as simple as this. If you're a jerk, if you're an idiot to someone, they're going to treat you differently.
Yeah.
That's just, I used to tell that to people all the time. Like,
and there's a whole tribalism connection, like back. And if you were an asshole in your tribe, they'd be like, well,
Eric, we don't swear on the show.
I knew it was going to happen.
A sphincter. If you were a sphincter.
A sphincter.
Yeah.
One of these days, I'm sorry, I will not swear.
No, that's okay.
But
you're getting better. That was the first one.
Yeah. But that makes sense, right? Like if, especially when the world was much simpler, it's like trying to survive, trying to eat, and trying to not get eaten. Mm-hmm. And you need to depend on other people for that survival and to be able to reproduce and whatnot. Like you need to, there would have been, I don't know, unwritten social laws or just things that were inherently understood.
Yeah.
I want to cooperate. I want to be nice to them because they help me. It's
a strategy. And that's sort of what we're getting at too. Like there is no logic, if you're the toxic parent, there's no logic in flying off the handle, right? It's not going to help you get what you want.
Yeah.
Like just think about it. Like, I mean, you might scare some coaches into bully them into listening. That's why coaches too, like you have to be careful when you're dealing with a parent like this because you don't want to reward this behavior because that's the worst thing you can do. I always think there's one answer and it's communication and preparation. So like, we talked about this in the ultimate coaching season. Remember the preseason information for parents, telling them how things work. Coming up with rules with
there's that preparation, right?
Yeah, preparation.
Already answering the questions why.
Yeah, and coming up with the team rules, by the way, with the players and consequences, and including the parents in that too, right? If the parents are sitting there in a meeting before anything happens, and the kids are in a meeting, and they're all saying, like, imagine that. I don't know.
Shane mentioned this too.
Yeah, I don't know if many coaches do this really, but if you have a meeting, and you jot down and you ask people straight up, what do you think should happen if player X doesn't show up for two practices, in like close order, and they're not legit reasons, not sick, not, horribly injured, not migraine. And I guarantee you every parent in that room, in that setting, it's not their kid, and those players, they would all say, oh, yeah, okay, what should happen? Well, I think there should be some playing time consequence, or should I start that kid the next tournament? They would all agree. But then if they don't have that meeting, it's like a surprise, and they're like, hey, my kid has the best player on, my kid's the best player on the team, or whatever, or in their mind there. So doing these things early, that preparation, that communication early, it totally disarms. And now it's not even you doing it as a coach, right? it takes you out of the equation. It's the meeting did that. We all decided this. And so that's a very powerful thing. If you're a coach,
having the players there too, because then the kids are already, they might even correct their parents before this even happens. Like, well,
and any argument over policy will be a jokey, laughy argument in that room, and people will settle down. Okay, so what's the number? What's the number? You tell me.
Yeah.
And then I think it should be this. You guys think it should be that. And then the question also becomes is like,
why are we thinking about the number? Are you going to be
exactly? That the parents and the players are laughing at themselves because like, wait a minute, I'm not even going to miss practice. Why am I afraid? So it just plants that seed too, that it sets a tone for the whole season of communication, collaboration, and you're still very much the coach. Like a lot of coaches think this is giving away power, and I would argue to you, I would submit that this is gaining you so much more power because now you got them all on board.
When you're empowering them, you're letting them know the structure, and then their fate is decided by their actions. Because let's be honest, it's not easy being the player parent combo. It's a lot of work to engage fully in a volleyball season. It's like it's way more work for the parent. My mom drove me everywhere, made all these meals, all that work. It's a ton of work.
Even
right?
Crazy. She drove you crazy.
Yeah. I don't know why you did that. And it's so you're all willingly entering into this difficult situation for a good reason to participate in the wonderful sport of volleyball. And now you all agree upon the same rules, and so your fate is what you make it.
Well, then there's a shared sense of fate too, right? Like you're all literally in this together now, right? Like you're all sort of, it really is a bonding moment.
Yeah.
And also I think it gives the parents a window into the tricky part of setting policy. Remember we talked about logic, ideas rooted in logic? You're actually forcing them to see the logic in what you have to deal with as a coach. So there's nothing, always bring people into the process because they need to see how difficult it is to come up with these things. And if you just have a list of like, every coach knows this in their head. You have a list of like 10 major things that just piss you off every year and that you have to have consequences for. Not only does having the meeting show the parents, wow, this coach has really thought ahead, right? Wow, this is a good coach. 2, it's also making the parents and players aware that these things are problems and that they're going to be problems. And you know what happens when people, they don't want to be the person that causes that problem after this meeting. They remember this meeting and they'll remember it all year. Okay. And they'll, and then of course, like the second part of this is the coach has to uphold, like there's like a social contract here, right?
Yeah.
Like if you guys can't be late, if you guys can't miss for stupid reasons, I can't be. That's where the problems can start sometimes for coaches, where if they're not following their own rules or rules don't apply equally to all players, right? Coaches take care and make sure that you are sticking with that plan if you go this route. I guarantee you, a lot of coaches listening to this might think, oh, what a pain in the butt. That sounds like a huge headache. Think of the headaches you're avoiding by taking this small step. That's what I did when I was in business and in sports even, and in life. I like to solve issues. There's a lot of people who will run around putting out fires, right? I like to look at what's causing all the fires and stop it.
Yeah.
Right. There's a different approach. You don't just run around solving issues. You don't run around solving specific things. You solve issues, right?
Yeah.
You solve general issues. So the big issue here is parents not understanding my logic, players not understanding why there needs to be a consequence.
You need to ask yourself why. Why don't they? I clearly haven't communicated this well, or
right.
something.
But I mean, you don't want to have to communicate it 100 times throughout the season. That's why coaches lose it, because they have to explain it every time to every parent. Have the meeting at the start. Yes, it's a pain, but it's a small pain that will get rid of all the other pains. Like there's a theory in here too, where it's like, you solve the one problem that will solve 100 other problems. That's what you're doing here. You're doing one thing that will solve all other or a lot of other problems. So, sorry, you look like you were going to say something there.
I was just thinking in the scenario of a preseason start, one organization does this kind of general meeting, one organization doesn't. I would tend to think, I can't necessarily think of the reasons why, but the parents who are a part of the club who have this general meeting I think they would be more likely to even help each other out because like they're all there. They understand the rules, you know, it's, and it's difficult, like we're saying, to get to all these practices. And so you're already, like you said, you've already formed this like bond with each other. So maybe it's like, hey, like, oh, I'm going to have a difficult time getting to Chloe to practice this week. Can you like, and then I don't know. Yeah. So the bond will happen, and it comes with benefits to it, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to help each other out.
Yeah. I think a lot of coaches go into the season, and rightfully so, with the us versus them mentality, like, oh, the parents, right? And I think that if you take that approach where, and like I said, rightfully so, there's a lot of crazy parents out there. Let's not overlook that. That's why we're doing this show, right? Because we are the first ones to call out bad coaching, but there are also bad parents just by the same reasons that cause them. But so if you were to take this approach, like at the start of the season, like you were saying, imagine the bonding in that room.
Yeah.
Great early chance too, by the way, to assess some personalities and maybe define some problems before you go too far down the season, right? And address them. And then imagine that team carrying on through the season, and periodically, what if you have another meeting? What if you have 2 meetings, 3 meetings all year?
That addresses, like, say you've had the same parent and you're going into a new season with them. This whole general meeting thing actually addresses that individual. And you know, that's a great way to have everyone there. And then say you failed to do that the previous season. That's something I would think to do. It's like, oh, I really had a tough time with this individual parent. I'm going to hold this general meeting. Yeah. It just sets like you were there, everyone else was there.
Yep. And don't just glare at them after every point that relates to them. So what if we're, not there,
Yeah.
No, but I think, so this is wonderful too, because one of the things that can really trigger a toxic parent is the favoritism of a returning player, right? So that idea, I don't like the idea that coaches move up with teams. I think that's a horrible formula. Yeah. I think it's awful for the kid. I think it's awful. But on the other side, if great coaches are scarce, I can see why players and parents might want to stay with a great coach. Yep. But if you are having a player return to you next year, and other players and parents are worried about favoritism because the coach is buddy with that player, this meeting also will kill that, because that meeting, it said that if player did this, then this would happen. And if the coach, if you have that meeting, you're sort of holding yourself accountable to that behavior, not letting that kid off the hook because but I know that person, they're great. So
you know how in society, like, we're all, I don't know if this is a growing trend, but how no one wants to take responsibility, especially when we see something in public. We're all, especially, it's that the more people present, the less likely anyone is to engage. So
diffusion of responsibility.
There you go. Yeah. Should we say that there is, or can we say that, say this general meeting doesn't occur, can parents take it upon themselves to find a way and again, the earlier you do it, the better. I don't know if I'm asking a question or saying.
No, you're thinking out loud. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, can they just reach out to the coach, or probably the coach would be the first point, and just be like, hey, can we, or start asking some of these questions and maybe give a recommendation. Can we hold you know what I mean? That you would want, if this doesn't happen,
I know what you're saying.
Want it to.
Well, I think it would be a great suggestion. So if parents are listening to this, I think honestly, this is not an advertising plug, but I honestly hope that people who listen to our show will share our show with people, like on their timelines and in their volleyball circles with other parents and with coaches, and tell them to listen to it in chunks, because these guys can ramble forever, right? Especially the good looking guy.
Yeah,
the good looking brown guy.
I
had to qualify that. Anyway, but no, the idea that, like, so I think that you can suggest it to happen, but I wouldn't recommend that they go do it without the coach.
No.
Yes.
No. It has to. Yeah.
It has to be like it's tricky too, because you gotta, like, what coach are you?
Well, and this is a whole difficult thing.
Is it if it's an insecure coach and they're like, no, what do you mean? It's my team. But again, we're hoping that some coaches can listen to this and understand.
Recommend it, and like, certainly the coach has to initiate it. Like, you don't want to.
It's for the benefit of the coach, right? Like, we're not saying this to tell the coach to give the parents power. We're actually saying this for the coach to actually have an easier time, right? Because at the end of the day, right? And this is what we were getting at before with toxic parents. This is why you can't come back at them. You can't scream at them. You can't argue with them. At the end of the day, this is about getting someone to do what you need them to do. Yeah. Right. So it's the same way, like when we're dealing with players, we don't want to scream at players who are giving us attitude. We don't want to give them attitude back. That just escalates. We want to show understanding, and we want to bring them on board. And I always go to this line, right? What works better? It's the whole honey or vinegar thing, right? Vinegar is not palatable. It's the bitterness, literally. It's the meanness. It doesn't work. Honey, friendliness, kindness, inclusivity in that early stage is so vital. And I don't want to say the appearance of listening, like you really are listening. Like imagine like the coach goes, so what are all your thoughts? And then they all give their ideas for 15, 30 minutes. Then you go, okay, great. And you pull out a chart that was written 3 years ago. Yeah. Okay, so
we're good.
Yeah, just
the ideas.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, that's the fake. I mean, we saw all that during, politicians love to do that, right?
Yeah.
Give people the appearance that they're having input.
So much of this, even if you are being like honey and being nice.
What did you call me?
Honey. So much of this
honey
rests in vulnerability. So many of the reasons why this doesn't happen or may not happen sits in vulnerability. Like say you like, I can only see this taking so much energy and like and preparation. If I'm the parent wanting to communicate this to the coach, it's a great idea. But if the coach has that, if I'm not saying it, I don't know, nice enough or whatever, like their ego may be insulted because they're afraid of the vulnerability. It's like, oh my goodness, this parent is giving me this recommendation of a great idea and I didn't think of it. Therefore, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to make it.
I don't even think they'll get to the great idea.
I know they won't. But it's like so many of the reasons why none of these great things happen is because of the vulnerability that we have as individuals and frail egos or whatever.
Ego, yeah. That's why this show really, we are targeting coaches here. Like, I mean, we know parents can listen to this, and I mean, don't forget, parents, you can use the same strategy with your family. You can use these same strategies with your own little, group of friends. If you're having any sort of scenario where you have to manage people or, want to make sure that people feel involved in the process, this is what they mean, right? They don't mean the superficial thing.
Yeah, and it's not trying to be like, oh, yeah, see, where would you be without my recommendation? Or like, I know you really have to keep reminding yourself that it's for like the better of them and you together. And it's not about being like,
well, and if you do have the fragile coach who is, let's show that coach the same compassion that we're asking toxic parents to receive, right? Like, don't forget, behind a jerk coach is a lot of pain, is a lot of frustration. I always tell people, like, I remember, like, I would have a coworker. I remember, like, when I was teaching, I'd have a coworker who was like really grumpy with kids in her role. She was like working the front desk, basically the reception. And I used to tell kids when they would come in and they'd all say, oh my God, she's so mean. I said, listen, you have to understand. You have to understand what her life is like, right? Her day. Every day she comes in and there's nothing but rude kids coming in.
Hey, what a great way to actually start a session, because you're already... I don't know.
Showing them some patience.
Yeah.
No, but you just listen, think of what her day is like. You have one interaction with her, right?
Yeah.
She has 100 these a day. And 90% of them are like, not difficult, just like a little, like it's a little jab. And this is what coaches are, right? Good coaches are quitting the sport because they can't handle the toxic. The more society goes down the social media, like you were talking about, lack of confidence, self-loathing, impatient, the more we go down that road, the more all of our institutions are losing good people. I mean, like, I don't want to say I didn't leave teaching because I'm not saying I was a great teacher, but I was a great teacher. I was a well-liked teacher, right? And part of that well-liked thing, that logic, is not rewarded in coaching, in teaching. So, I mean, look what I did. I was coaching and I started my own business in volleyball because I wanted to get out of that world. I was teaching and now here I am doing a podcast, talking to the world in a different way, which is not in part of that institution that isn't rewarding, logic.
Well, and speaking of needs-based, you have quality coaches who are getting out of it, and then you have others individuals entering into it to actually fulfill a need, that need made to feel dominant or feel respected, because you automatically step into a position of authority.
Yes, and
so,
it's cheaper than law school or
yeah.
police academy.
Yeah, yeah, and you get to yell at kids. No, it's like, but yeah, like needs based, because where can that competent coach, they understand that, I mean, they're just like the toxic one. They have needs, but they, however, will have the, I don't know, strength to go and look elsewhere, because they're confident and be like, this isn't fulfilling the need. If anything, it's more negative. It's more worse coming in than it is that I'm getting. But I know if I go try hard here, then I can get what I'm looking for.
Yeah, or you want to go to the meritocracy. Yeah.
Or at least I'll be one step closer to figuring. Yeah, you want to get,
the audience is logical and based on merit. Yeah. No, I talk to coaches all the time, and they're at wit's end. Some of the good ones too.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not the good ones, but a lot of the good ones, because like we talked about, like.
And I can understand. I bet every coach probably has, to some degree, the same thought of, new season, oh man, like having to deal with difficult parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's every coach. There's one on every team.
Like I said though, off the top, like I don't want to go too far down the, like I did say, a lot of good coaches are doing things that nullify this earlier, nip it in the bud, like we talked about. So you can minimize it, but there are coaches that just, if you do it year after year, several teams. I still would say that if you're a communicative coach who's open and knows your stuff and prepared, I think that you have an answer for everything. That helps. Like I always used to say that when I was teaching, like I didn't have the same problems people had with kids or parents. Like I would answer the parent with self-esteem, and they would thank me.
Yeah.
And I only had that self-esteem because I was always prepared. So same with coaching too. I was always prepared.
And these. Yeah, these bad situations are still going to happen with a coach who, I'm thinking it may come down to a communication failure. They're doing the right things. They have a reason why. That the reasons are all there, and then they're making the changes. They're trying to implement new strategies, and they're following a process. But perhaps they don't communicate it well, and they could still end up. Post tournament, they end up getting like a long written email from a parent, just like going off on, they're seeing all these, listing these observations, which are true, but they just don't know the reasons why. So, but then that's a learning lesson in and of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but yeah, it just looks like a lot. It's a lot of work, man. Like you're a coach, you're doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden, you thought it was a good tournament where they had a good challenging scenarios and they lost, and you feel good about it, and then all of a sudden the next day you read this email and you're just like,
that's a good point, because that does go back to the communication, right? Like you said, like remember you said like the YouTube video, and the coach hasn't articulated why he wants or why she wants to try it, so why he or she wants to try it.
You can do that every time?
I'm going to do that every time. I'm going to emphasize it too. I'm teaching, right? I'm still teaching. I have to teach you that there are there's several genders.
Well,
I don't want to get political. But I have to teach you that there's, at least two.
I don't see books written like that.
Oh, so that's your whole criteria. You don't see. So you don't
think a lot of books I read, they'll use
a lot of books you read.
Yeah. What?
So you don't.
They'll just switch between the examples.
Okay. All right. So you maybe okay.
Well, I don't know. It's just
because I don't know how. I haven't heard you switch until I mentioned it. So.
Well, I said I only did it once, and then you brought it up, so I haven't been able to switch.
Or have you been doing it all along, and I only waited till now to confront you, so as to not jeopardize the friendship?
You've now dragged us back into the weeds. You've now.
Remember that meeting we had at the beginning of the season where I said that these are the consequences when Eric's sexist. Here's the consequence when Eric's racist.
We didn't hold this meeting, or I wasn't in attendance.
Oh, maybe it was just me by myself. Were you? No, I was. Yeah, that's right. That was the toilet. Okay, so are we done here? Do we have other things that we can say? Toxic parents. So the advice again for handling a toxic parent, if we were to sum it up, great communication at the start of the year for coaches. That's a great idea. It's I don't want to say you're managing people, but you are, letting them be a part of the process. And it's the real gold in that is that you're not coming down with the irrational or the punishment that can be seen as irrational. You're getting all of that out of the equation, nice and open with everybody at the beginning of the season, and they are helping contribute to come up with the rules. It's like when you do it with kids at home. You're not punishing them. We agreed to this.
Yeah. And if you're not holding this meeting, is there perhaps a reason you are intentionally allowing or wanting some gray zones? So then, again, because don't do this. So then you can make snap decisions depending on each unique situation. I've had managers do this to me. I've asked for a clearly defined set of policies and stuff like that,
because they don't want to be pinned down.
No, exactly. They want the freedom to be like, we'll talk about it if that happens. Right? It's to their advantage.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So make sure you're not doing that.
Make sure you're not doing that.
And then the other side of it, I think we talked
about.
And
the reason why they want to do,
no, that's okay.
The reason why is because partly is probably because they don't want to have to write something down that they're going to have to then be accountable for.
Right. No, that's totally true. No,
yeah.
I've heard of that for sure, where I've seen employees or people get punished for asking for clear points because then that puts it in writing, and then that means the whole legal thing. But you're right. Yeah. The idea is we don't want to be pinned down or blamed. So coaches like that eliminates that. The other thing I really say is so that's one way to make sure that the toxic parent is sort of nullified. And the other thing is understand who they are too. Like if you can change how you see toxic behavior in a parent as that insecure child who's now grown up and now their child's failure is linked to them, it's not necessarily a way for you to hate them more. It's more so just an understanding that this is coming from a place of pain, and you have to deal with it that way.
Yeah.
Anger doesn't work against anger, right? I mean, the old line, I love that line, you got to fight fire with fire. Because I find that when I have a fire in the house, adding more fire doesn't usually work.
Yeah, farting on it does not help.
No, and real fire, it actually increases the fire. Funnily enough. So I find that, water or lack of oxygen.
Don't throw water on a grease fire.
No, not a grease fire. No, this is a safety for this show. This show is very multifaceted, right? Don't fart on the fire, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Don't throw water on a grease fire. Just jump on it with your body. No, just kidding. That's horrible advice. Anyway, so the idea of reacting with volatility to volatility will only increase the volatility, if I can complete the metaphor.
Do I keep reaching? No, I don't. Okay.
Yeah, Eric, you keep reaching.
Do some difficult things in your life that you are initiating, right? The whole.
You mean like the coaches or people or other parents dealing with
related to exercise?
Oh, yes.
They always say, hey, exercise in the morning, the rest of your day is easier, right? Like your things become less personal when you are. Yeah, I mean, exercise is great, but I'm sure there's other ways to do it as well. Like just challenge yourself, but you're the one who initiated it. It's not like, you can work hard at work, but that's not the same as, hey, I want to do this difficult task that I've been putting off. Or
it puts things in perspective too, right? It puts the parent in perspective.
Self-care.
Yeah, well, if you're doing the hard thing, like if you do exercise, we talked about the dopamine rush already, right? Which helps you manage things. It also helps the toxic parent, by the way. If you're the parent who freaks out all the time, get some activity going. But the dopamine rush and the activity on the coach's side, if you do that hard thing in the morning, or if you do something training physically hard, then these things seem smaller. Even the angry parent seems much smaller. It's a great point. We didn't really say that earlier, but you put it in perspective by doing it. Even myself, the past, like I said, I've had a few months of not working.
It's so much nicer
because it's serious. Yeah, I know. Nicer looking.
Yeah.
If that, I didn't even think it was possible.
I have to sit on this side of the table.
I know, and you stay over there, mister.
I have to look that way.
Just a constant reminder of how much better looking I am than you. That's I don't know how you do it.
I'm going to enjoy this show so much better.
How do you do it?
So much better? I can't even speak
so much
proper
so much more
grammar.
No, but I think that the idea that, perspective and doing hard things, so for me, coming off this injury, just my mood is better after working out. My patience with things is better. So I think that coaches, compassion, communication, really nips things in the bud before they start. And I think that sometimes you can't reason, like in fairness, you can't sometimes reason with like,
crazy. Right.
It's hard to reason with.
In that,
yeah,
right?
There's a lesson in that, and it's
reality.
But I still can't see a parent going too crazy with that preemptive meeting.
Yeah.
That's a great solution, a great idea that works, and we've done it before, and like I said, like I've spent seasons where I've communicated with parents openly about why I do what I do and why we are losing early, and they generally walk away from it. Now it helps because they know what I've done. It helps that they know the background. And it's funny how that works though. That's a truth though. Like they know what that means.
That's not the big thing though. It's not like.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, it's rooted in logic.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of see it in the practices you conduct, and the process is clear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I guess you can't lose. Not to end on a hokey thing, but you can't really lose by going the kindness route. Like if you're dealing with someone toxic, you can't really go by you can't really lose or fail by being big. The bigger person was the old thing people used to talk about, be the bigger person. And what that means is, don't go down to that level, right? Stay up here.
Yeah.
And they will rise up. And if they don't, they'll look pretty foolish. Remember, like you did say that whole thing about, I mean, it's different with a bullying teammate, but like active listening, the idea, rewording back what they're saying to you.
Yeah.
Like, so you sound pretty upset about your kid not playing, and just keep going, sort of rewording. Eventually they're going to want an answer from you, and you can't just keep going, well, so it sounds like he sounds like you're very angry. And they're like, yes, I am. Why isn't my kid playing? Sounds like you want your kid to play.
Yeah.
Just keep going like that until you get punched in the face. But
I mean, it would still solve the problem because they would probably.
Well, they are going to feel.
Coach is crazy.
Yes. He just repeated it.
Yeah.
Or she.
Nice catch. You almost didn't catch that.
Oh, I caught it, Eric.
Okay.
I just in due time. But anyway, I think we did all we could here. I think it's not a problem that's going away, and sadly, this is societal. We're seeing it's not just happening on the volleyball court; it's happening at freaking Denny's.
I don't know if I feel any better off. Like we're explaining so much, but there's still it's so
societal.
Yeah, and like as much as I want to give solutions, it's it's becoming more common. Well, the sport is exploding, but. Yeah, like
but at least we can all we can do is inform and discuss, and in some ways it's comforting to know that it's not just volleyball, right? Because it gives you that bigger picture of, okay, this is a bigger problem. It helps you bring perspective and understanding to the person in front of you.
And you're right, it not to self-plug, but sharing this or having conversations that talk about this, whether you share this or not, but just talking about this, that's part of the solution.
Yeah, like if you hear an idea here and it comes up with another parent, or if you're hopefully some parents who give coaches a hard time, or coaches themselves are listening, and that can work. So share it like crazy, and comment and like and subscribe. No, I think that's a good one for today. We're under 2 hours today, so it's pretty good, about an hour and a half.
Cool.
All right. So, guys, thanks as always for listening. Again, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can listen to us. You can watch us if you want to see what we look like. We're on Spotify. You can watch.
Zoom looks so much better now. It's amazing.
I do.
Go back and watch the old ones and then compare.
Yeah. And wait till a few weeks from now. I might do the show shirtless.
Oh, or just jumping the whole time.
Jumping, shirtless.
Jumping.
I gotta get the
Please don't.
Hey, no, wait. This sounds superficial, Eric. We shouldn't, the kids are listening, right? It doesn't matter.
Right.
As long as you're a good person and you work hard, the body, the looks take care of itself. Believe me, kids. One day. No, okay, wait. This is rambling.
Yeah.
All right. Good thing you're not paying for this. Anyway, guys, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
What's the big idea?